now. All right, so welcome to my talk, my Gen Talk today. It is on foundations in structural health, and we're going to dive into the power of core. And core isn't really what we think it is. So much of core out there is a lot of outer core, it's parts of core. And as I've worked with patients throughout my career, my 25 years of working with patients, I've found common areas that need to be addressed. And a lot of them are actually missing the core, even they're doing core. So I wanted to start with a little analogy. So this is my rowing team. We row on the Sandusky Bay. And before we even start to row, we have to set and balance the boat. So each oar and each blade has to be sitting just on the water. If one's too high, it's going to tip us. If one's too low, it's going to tip us. And then if we're off balance and we go to row, we're not going to be able to row in a straight line. So once the boat is balanced, then it's up to the people in the boat, each individual person, to work together in order to make the boat go through the water as efficiently, as smoothly, with the least amount of energy as possible. So we want to go as fast as we can, as smooth as we can. We want efficiency. So each person has a job to do. They need to get their blade in the water at the right time. They need to pull at the right time. If someone pulls too fast, it's going to throw off the other people in the boat. The boat might wobble, it might tip, the boat might stutter a little bit. So just as I was putting this together, I wanted to, because this is really what happens in our bodies. Our bodies are made of parts and pieces, and all pieces need to be in balance. All the structures need to be in balance. And then all the muscles and everything needs to work. They need to work together at the right time, at the right place. So welcome to the complex, beautiful, amazing human body that we have. So here's me. I've been a therapist for 25 years. I study a lot. I study with some of the best mentors in the world, which I'm so grateful for. So I treat people with back pain, neck pain, you name it, any kind of pain, orthopedic. My work has evolved into treating people with GI issues, autoimmune issues, as we start to work in the visceral world. So we work inside the body as well. Most therapists work outside the body, but we work both inside and outside. And you'll see where that comes into play as we get more into the program. And then I also pull in some functional medicine aspects into it as well, because we are not just parts and pieces. We shouldn't be treated as parts and pieces. We need to be addressed as a whole organism, structure, function, emotion, all those pieces. So a lot of this work is also my own exploration, my own struggles with my own body. I started with back pain when I was 16 years old and I was a tennis player. And then over time, that back pain got better with some treatment. And then eventually I had knee pain. And then eventually I had plantar fasciitis. And I had all of the conservative treatment. I had injections and therapy and e-stem and all of that. But as I've moved forward in my career and I've worked with many patients, I look back at my history. And the common things here, I had meningitis when I was little. So that created an inflammatory process of my dura, which is the covering of the brain and the spinal cord, and many falls on the ice, and then GI issues. So all of those impacts and insults to my body changed the landscape of my body. Then I went to go play tennis. So as things got stiff and tight in certain areas because of these old injuries, it created increased strain at my low back, changed the way I walked. So then as I started to run more, that affected my knees, affected my heel and my foot. So then on top of that, a life well lived, right? Concussions and ski and mountain bike falls. So I continued to accumulate injuries, and then my body was always trying to find ways to adapt. So it really wasn't until I got some really good hands-on treatment and I really stay on top of this work as far as mobilizing my tissues, keeping my body as free and mobile as possible, and really making sure that I'm stable and strong. I'm able to stay on top of some of these old injuries because it's hard to get them 100% gone. So once we've had an injury, we're a bit more vulnerable. We always have little areas of tightness that left to their own devices, they'll work their way back. So we do have to stay on top of that work. And I notice when I haven't done my work, and I'll tell you what the work is very soon, when it's been a while, because sometimes I'm feeling great and okay, I don't need to get on the floor and do my work, or I just don't have time to do it. But when I don't do my work, I find myself getting tight and sore in my upper back and neck. And then I find my low back starts to get grouchy. So I haven't addressed the stability. And so when I'm playing tennis a lot, it just creates a little bit of shear force, and then I'll start to feel some pain down my legs. So those are old symptoms, but I've been able to stay on top of them by staying mobile and stable from inside out. So this is me over here. I ran 2 Ironmans. Inefficient mechanics. Again, I did not have this work back in 2005. I had not received it in my body and was just starting to learn it. But I really struggled with knee pain. I struggled with foot pain. And again, as I've learned about how here's these old injuries, here's the way the body compensates, it made all the sense in the world as to, wow, Jen, here's why you had knee pain. Here's, this pelvis wasn't moving very well, tightness in the upper back. So I did the best I could with terrible orthotics that hurt my feet, shoes that corrected pronation. And, you make one correction and then it creates another compensation until you address the bigger picture of the system. So the objectives are to just very quickly go through, here's current trends and what most people receive as far as traditional conventional therapy. Trauma compensation theory, that's my jam. This is where we look at everything that's happened to you throughout a lifetime. Here you are now, how'd you get here? And then really diving into functional length and strength, getting into the true core. That is my passion. This is my baby. And then we'll talk about what you can do, the courses that we offer to help you improve the efficiency, the structural health of your body so you can avoid surgeries down the road. I see lots of joint replacements. And I often say, gosh, if we would have addressed some of these components sooner, we wouldn't have to go down that road. So there's so much we can do to prevent a lot of the injuries, a lot of the pain, and recover and restore ourselves from what we've endured so far. This is my boy sliding into home base. Again, things happen, right? Like every impact that comes to our body lays in the system, and then our body has to find a way to adapt. So very few of us go through life unscathed. Things happen to us and our body adapts. And now we just have to support the structure and try to restore some of those old traumas. So trauma compensation theory. So everything that happens to us, right? Our body has to pivot and accommodate. And sometimes I get to people, and like I said, I wish I would have gotten to them a little bit sooner. So every car accident, every infection lays in the system, and then the body will always find a way to right your eyes to the horizon. So it'll always bring you upright at the expense of something else. That's often what we see in scoliosis. It will always find a way to keep you walking. And you'll see in videos as I bring them up shortly, where we get into back pain, knee pain, plantar fasciitis, all of these pieces based on the way somebody walks, which is driven by these old injuries that they've accumulated throughout a lifetime. So the concept of allostatic load, sometimes unfortunately a body gets to the point where it's accumulated so much and it runs out of room to adapt or compensate. It just doesn't have any more options. I have a really good friend of mine. He's in his early 70s and he was an avid tennis player for a long, long time. And when I saw him about 6-7 years ago, and wow, hey, I need to get a knee replacement. I'm watching him walk around in the gym. I'm like, man, we gotta address these mechanics. And so I started to teach him about, foam roll. This is just in the gym. He didn't come to see me as a patient, but hey, we need to address why you had this degeneration. And so often doctors are like, it's just part of old aging. And it's not. It's not. When you break it down and you look to see how people walk, how people move, it makes all the sense in the world. Here's how this knee endured extra strain. And over time, it became degenerative, became bone on bone, and needed a knee replacement. So the sad part about that was he didn't address the bigger picture. He didn't address the whys of why he ended up with such bad knee degeneration. He then ended up with a hip replacement. And then a couple years later, then there was a shoulder replacement. So he no longer is able to play tennis. He's really limited in his mobility. And still, we haven't addressed those deeper whys. We haven't improved the structural efficiency of his body, and he's running out of room for accommodations. So treating pain, most doctors, right? They just tell you to rest. There's ice and heat. Let's take medications to make the pain go away. And unfortunately, that's what most practitioners do. They're looking at, let's make your pain go away, but that doesn't address why. That doesn't address the forces that are creating the pain in the first place. And the body's brilliant. It will find another place to accommodate. And so back to the concept of rest, I work with a lot of athletes. And so, they'll see their doctor first thing. I wish they would come to see me first, but people are learning to get to me sooner before they go to their doctors. But they tell them to rest. So sure, they rest and then their pain is better. But then once they go back to activity, the pain comes back because here's these mechanical pieces that are contributing to these strain forces at, their knee or their hip or their pelvis or whatnot. So back to physical therapy, I was classically a physical therapist, and they do the best they can with what they have. But I've got patients come in and they said, I've been stretching, I've been strengthening. A lot of the strengthening is quote core. So it's a lot of outer core. So planks, crunches, leg lifts, and it's good to have pressure on the system, but it's still not addressing deep stability engagement. And as I go through the course today, you'll see where that stuff starts to come into your body. Chiropractors often, they do tend to stay at the site of the pain versus let's look at how does the head relate to the body, or did something happen in the upper back that relates to the lower back. So still this trauma compensation paradigm, if you will. So PRP and STEM, I want to talk just for a moment about that. So I got a good friend of mine I see at the coffee shop. He's an older gentleman as well. Hey, Jen, I went to Minneapolis and spent a lot of money and I got PRP for my knee. I've worked with the best in the country and that's great. So he had less pain. I was thrilled about that, but I still watched him walk. And his walk was still terribly inefficient, putting a lot of strain on his knees. And, I cross my fingers. I hope that this, lasts as long as possible, but concerned because no one's addressed the bigger picture. So sure enough, 3 years later, hey, Jen, I got to get that knee replacement. I'm like, man, we got to address these deeper inside structural pieces, the whole structure and function, and restore efficiency to get you out of the strain on the knee. So then unfortunately, then we go into injections and surgery. So if we can catch these things sooner, the more we restore the length and the functional strength of our body, we can avoid some of this wear and tear. So this image here, often, so it kind of shows like, here's a what? We've got some significant disc bulging. What this picture doesn't tell us, it doesn't tell us the history of the person, or it doesn't tell us the why. So often when I see a spine like this, sometimes people are coming in for back pain, sometimes they're coming in for sciatica. This person actually came in for plantar fasciitis. She was a runner. And I would ask her as I watch her move, I'm like, do you ever have back pain? She's like, no, I don't have back pain. But then we dove deeper into her history. And 20 years ago, she used to have some back pain. So this is interesting. It's the same mechanics, but how the symptoms changed over time as she kept pushing a system that was inefficient. So we have history of C-sections here. So that changed the way she moved. We had a fall to the tailbone down here. You can see the sacrum. So we have compressive forces that came up. And then as she's going to run, if we don't have good movement here, we've got compressive forces here. We get increased strain here at that low back. So this didn't happen overnight. This happened over a good 30 years as her body's been accommodating for some stuck areas on the front, some compressive forces there. So many things are compensations. Bunions are a compensation. People just want to do surgery on them or stretch them out. And when we look at the big picture of things, I'm going to take you into some videos. You'll see why. I'm going to show you where that bunion came from. So over here is dear Amy. She said I could share her movie. I'm going to slow her down. And all right, so as I slow her down, we're going to watch her walk. So the first thing that we see so much rotation at her low back. So she really rotates. So we've got some stiffness in the front. We've got some compression at the back. We've got tightness up here. So when we're stuck here, the body needs to find a place to go. So it says, oh, here's a place where I can get motion. She's getting way too much motion at her lumbar spine. She did have some back pain, which has resolved. And now we're addressing the bunion. So as I slow her down, you're going to see where, let's see if I can show it here. She turns. So when she pivots, it's very subtle, but watch her right foot. As she goes to step through, there's this little pivot. There's the pivot right there. So that over time, one step is fine, but she takes 10,000 steps a day. And we're really diving into that. We're creating that bunion with that rotational force. But the bunion itself is not the problem. The problem is more so the tightness at the upper body. When she walks with her legs. So she's getting tight through the front of her legs here. So our work for her, right, we need to get tension off the upper back, tension off the pelvis. She's doing that through foam roll. Then we need to reestablish the stability at the core so that she's not rotating so much at that low back. So we are going to restore that. And then we bring in control, where I need to teach her how to have stability. Let me pause her. I have to teach her how to have stability from the foot, knee, hip, pelvis. So she needs to relearn, retrain how to get stability and strength so that she can have better alignment, not pivot off that foot, have better stability at her pelvis. Compensations are everywhere. So shoulder pain, anything tendonitis, bursitis, those are often compensations. And we think about almost like gears in a car, right? So you've got gears in a car or gears in a machine, and they're in the right place. So they need to rotate. If they're off kilter a little bit, we start to get wear and tear and degeneration. And so that's what we want. We want things to be in better and good alignment. We want things to move nice and easy and clear. And when they don't, that's when we start to get those compensations. We get wear and tear. So a brief video here. So here we're dealing with knee pain. And we have some tightness above that we do need to work on the functional length. We've got some tightness higher in the body as well. But in this case, this one is more of he needs stability. So he's coming so quickly through and he's got beautiful strength, but it's outer strength of the quad. And what we don't see, we can see how that knee really wobbles and wiggles as he comes down. So we need control and stability at the pelvis and into the foot. So we need to learn how to engage the foot coming up to the pelvis. This one right here. We've got a stuck pelvis, a stuck upper body. And then you'll see as she goes into a squat, which we need to pick things up off the ground all the time, right? We need to get something out of the bottom of the freezer. So every time she goes in, she gets a lot of shear force here at that lumbar spine. So again, we've got to loosen this up, loosen that up, learn how to get stability from the front of the body, engage the feet. So we treat the whole person. And just as I've been saying, we've got, it's not enough to just say, here's one area, I treat that. How does that one part relate to the entire body, especially as we go into function? And that's the beauty of the work that we do. So this is Sally. We've been treating her quite a while for some back pain. And part of her story is she has had a C-section. So we've got scar tissue on the front. So that's pulling her there. She was telling me that she would get into trouble when she was gardening. So I said, go into that position, show me what you're doing. So does she have enough length through her arms? And what happened is she went into her arms, there was some tightness through the fascia, through the tissues that was pulling into her back. So we'll see that on foam roll. Do you have enough mobility to let your arm go overhead without your back popping up or pulling? We get into the concept of tug of war. Bodies do not like tug of war, and that's where we tend to get into trouble. Another piece for her is back to that core. Does she have enough strength and stability to hold herself up? You know, are things engaging well so that her back is supported when she goes down and reaches? So those are some components that we worked on in the clinic, and it's all connected from head to toe. So how well do you stack with gravity? So that's one of the first places we start to look. This is Reagan. She plays basketball for Purdue, and she came to me for knee pain. But as we worked, we started to come up as I look at how she walks. I broke down her walk. And a big part of her body actually is her upper body. And this tightness up here, you can see the angle and the angle. So this tightness up here tends to affect her pelvis. It changes her pelvis, and then it makes her over recruit with her legs. So I don't have a picture of her gait, but I'll show you something similar next. So, but back to compensation, her body's not going to let her, if she followed the curve, her head would always be down. So back to compensation, her body says, I need to right my eyes to the horizon. So as she brings her eyes to the horizon, it brings all this back and brings that force there. So as we corrected her over here, it's behind my thing. Let me move you here. So as we work on some length, we retrain, here's where you need to stack your body. It showed this tightness up here. So this wasn't really a problem for her. So it was more of a quiet problem, but this tightness here created this here, which changed the pelvis, which drove it there. So this is where we look at the big picture of how your body moves and tug of war. So this is where the magic really happens. I mean, if we're fortunate, most everybody gets to walk. Not everybody gets to walk. So, but every day we're taking 10,000 steps. So back to Reagan and how she had some knee pain. So when she walked and when she ran, back to this tightness up here, changed the pelvis, her leg would get in front of her. So every step she took, she would have increased shock into the knee. So in a perfect world, when we run, we want our leg to be underneath us. But if we are stuck and tight in the pelvis, stuck and tight above, if we don't have the length to get into a good position, we get these so this is a compensation. So this is also where I tend to see some plantar fasciitis as well, again, with inefficient mechanics at the pelvis driven by tight things above and below. So over here, I have a gentleman, I'm gonna play his video. So back pain, but also had history of knee stuff, but primarily he came to see me for back pain. So as he walks, you can see the shock that goes through his body. So he just, every step he takes, he doesn't absorb shock well. I'm going to play that one more time. And he goes side to side. So he really can't get his legs behind him very much. So we'll see that as we break it down into a leg swing. If we're so tight there, we can't get the legs behind us. The body's trying to figure out another way to propel him forward. It will always find a way to keep you walking. So he did several sessions with me. So we treated some mechanical things. We actually had a lot of cardiac heart stuff that we had to address. So this area was actually a primary for him. And then we had secondary, the compensatory at the low back and the pelvis. But he did a great job on his foam roll. So we worked on that vertical length of foam roll. He was really diligent. He worked on it often. And then we started to get into the stability, because once we've had a lot of he's got damage. Once we have a lot of damage here, a lot of strain to that area, we have to work really hard to protect it and stabilize it. So here he is afterwards. So he did a great job of improving the length through his pelvis. We still have some work to do, but we were able to get a lot of tension off. And that's the whole goal of this work that I want to teach you for home, is to unburden. We need to unburden the system. We need to create ease in the system so you can move through space easier. And then we need the strength and stability so that you can move even more efficiently. So these are common spots. So it's not one size fits all, because everybody's different with their unique history, but there's common areas that I see that everybody needs to work on. And often most of my patients are like, but I don't hurt here. I said, I know you don't hurt here, but, and this is where we pre-test and post-test. Look at how this area up here affects your back or affects your knees. So often, so many of us are tight in our upper bodies. We sit all the time. We as women, right, we carry breast tissue, we have bras, and that's another place that makes us tight. In my basketball girls, they're all college players, they're high level, they're pretty tall. So I tend to see a lot of them coming down here as well. So there's a lot of this tightness that we get through the chest and the upper back. Sometimes car accidents will cause that as well. So then I also see tightness through the pelvis. So here's the tightness above, the tightness below. So anytime you've fallen on your butt, pretty much everybody has fallen on their butt at some time. Sometimes, often, I see C-sections, I'll see abdominal surgeries, which will also cause tightness. So anytime you get tightness in your body has to work around, it needs to pivot. I use the analogy of a wetsuit, right? So you've got tension on that wetsuit, you pull on the tension, that tension goes all the way down. Or even you've got your wetsuit and you throw some Elmer's glue on it and it gets all sticky and hard. So you go to move, and then here's this area that's really hard and you don't move through it. So then we get compensations above, compensations below. So often what I see in everybody, not just my athletes, I just worked with a patient this morning before this call, and she's had a history of car accidents. And Jen, I want to work out, but she's had so much pain, a lot of tension through the arterial system. So we've had to go very slow and delicate. But just as I've been preparing for this course, I've been getting into this work more. And every time she would use her arm, she'd get so much pain. So I said, you know what, let's dive into your deeper stability. It's time for us to go in there. So we went into her body. We started actually to work base of support, because back to move, we need a solid foundation off which to work, versus this hollow Easter bunny. I'll come into that in just a little bit. We want a solid foundation, or else we just don't have anything to anchor ourselves, and things, we get into tug of war. So what was happening for her, anytime she would use her arm, all of these other muscles would kick in and compensate and work for her. So our job was to actually, let's start down below. Let's start to engage the feet, engage the pelvis. Can we generate enough stability in your body in order for those muscles that have been holding on for dear life to let go? Because back to compensation, she's developed these strategies. You know, she lost the core a long time ago. We've got structural tug of war. And so really some of these muscles are just holding on. And I see that often. I'll see hip flexors working way too hard. I'll see quads working way too hard. And again, your body did the best it could with what it did, but it's learned these adaptations which really aren't efficient or effective. So it's a matter of trying to let those settle down. It becomes challenging because it's letting go, like it's being strong, but letting go. So all of these oxymorons. So as I work with patients, we see everyone lined up here. As we start to traction, sometimes I need them to take a breath and let everything go in order to tap into the deeper stability, because those outer muscles say, hey, I want to jump in and work. So when that's where some of these exercises, you know, core and planks, it's a lot of outer muscles, but it's really not this deep, solid foundation that we want to generate from the ground up into our pelvic floor, into lower core, upper core, all the way to the neck. We want all of it to recruit together. So the concept of core is it gets turned off like a light switch. So everyone talks about let's strengthen our core. Well, if your core doesn't know how to turn on, you're not going to be able to strengthen it. And anytime you've had pain, that core turns off like a light switch. If you've been in not great positions or postures, you've been on an airplane, that core can turn off, especially core of the neck. So this is our job with the work, is to help you turn that core back on. So you'll be able to feel, hey, my core is working, or no, my core is not working. And I can tell people right away, like, hey, you're super strong on the outside, but you're not firing. Things aren't firing stable. And the core needs to fire in anticipation of movement. So as soon as you start to move, that core whoop, should kick in, that pelvic floor should be solid, and it needs to stabilize your spine, because if it's not stabilizing your spine, we start to get moving and too much jarring through the system. So I'm going to come back to the story of the 20-year-old weightlifter, but it's a great one. These are the principles. So foundational principles that everybody needs and most of us are missing, right? Ease of motion, mobility through the tissues. We need, how well do we stack ourselves against gravity? How well are we aligned? Alignment really comes into play when we get into shoulder blades. Head, neck, we get tightness in the neck, we get neck pain, we get shoulder injuries and shoulder trouble. So that's where alignment, positioning ourselves. Do we have enough length to get into a good position? Alignment through here. Maeve does not. We're working on her. And then to get the shoulder blade in a good position. And then we need to get strong in that position. So it's not enough to just, okay, I've mobilized, but we have to teach the body how to get strong and stable in that lengthened position. Base of support is huge. This course starts with the feet, like the core of the foot is the heart of the program after we foam roll. Because if we don't engage the foot, our core doesn't fire, and core should fire automatically with each step we take. And then we integrate that into movement. And that's where everything you do, I want that core to start to fire automatically. So as you learn these principles, your body starts to pay attention. Oh, this is what she wants me to do. And then you're much more stable and strong. So this is Maeve. She is going to compete in the 2028 Olympics for Team Ireland. She is the Ireland National Championship in weightlifting. I forget what her class is because I don't know kilos very well, but she came to me for knee pain and some shoulder pain. She was a rugby player, so she had lots of injuries. So the first thing I look at is how well can you get into a position? How well can you stack? If you're going to be putting a lot of weight overhead, you better be structurally sound. Can you get into those positions for your bones to take the weight instead of your muscles trying to do the work for you? So again, back to structure alignment. When we stack well, our muscles don't have to do as much work. It's when we're off kilter, then muscles, especially like this tightness in the upper back, that's where muscles start getting strained. They start getting irritated. They get knots in them. So for her, she also needs to learn foam roll. I started her on baby 3-pound pink weights. She had to laugh. I wish I had a picture of this, but we've had to work on getting her arms overhead, trying to restore the length through here without compensating elsewhere. She needs more length through here. And she's so strong, but often when you're so strong, we can't tap into this deeper stability. So you can see how strong she is through her legs, but she's not quite engaging her feet. So as she's starting to learn how to engage the feet, the core is automatically starting to fire. She's starting to get some deeper intrinsic stability in which to work off of, because when we're working the outer without this inner, we get this tug of war. We get legs that get too strong. We get tightness through the quads, and then that in turn creates its own set of problems of tug of war. So we're always talking about efficiency. So pre-testing is a huge thing. We'll do this in the course because it's so important for you to know your body really well. And as you learn these techniques, I want you to feel the change. And the great thing about this is within foam roll, like 5 minutes on foam roll, you'll feel the difference right away. So I teach you how you pre-test and post-test because I want you to know how effective you are in doing this work, because it's not me doing it for you. I want you to learn this work and own this so that you have this work for a lifetime. So when we go into, so we test very simply range of motion. We can do arm range of motion, neck range of motion, forward bend. I really want you to find those motions that tend to bother you most. So you have kind of your baseline. Okay, this is what this feels like. When we go into doing the foam roll, I have everyone lay on the floor flat. And then you notice, okay, how much of my back is off the floor? is one side pushing into the ground more than the other. So you just take notice. Is there tension in my neck? Where is there tension in your body? Where is your low back? And for most of us, we're tight in our upper backs. Our low backs are often off. They're holding tension. They're off the ground. We spend 5 minutes on foam roll, going through 1, 2, 3 pieces of our foam roll, go back on the floor, and I can see it, and my patient feels it right away. Wow, look at how much more ease I have in my body. And the great thing is, it only takes 3 to 4 minutes for foam roll to get that ease in the body. It does take work over time. So as we start to bring the arms in it, I tell patients like, hey, we're not going to get there today or tomorrow, but here's your goal, is to be able to get your arm overhead without your back arching. So it's a work in progress, and we work on it often a good 3 to 4 times a week. So we look at gait, how well you walk. Do you hit your heels heavy? Does one heel hit more than the other? Do you pivot? Leg swings are a big test. I want to pull this one up here. So this gentleman came in to see me for hip pain, and actually I've treated him quite a bit, so this is much better than it was. But we look to see, I need to go back to his other one. Let's go back to this one here. So look at how as he swings, he rotates his foot. Again, this is so much better than it was. But for him to clear his pelvis and his hip to walk, he really has to rotate through the side. And it's his right hip that gives him trouble. So again, if you can't move here, your body finds another place. So he gets a lot of rotational compensation at the hip. So we've been treating the hip, but if I just treat the hip and I don't address these structural pieces, I don't help him restore the way he walks, he's just going to keep coming back, which I enjoy seeing him, but I want him to be functional, efficient. I want him to go about his way and spend his time and money doing other things instead of having to deal with this hip that keeps coming back. So from the front, I'll let it play a little bit more. From the front, you can see where the tightness comes from the front there. So he's got a lot of tightness. So he needs to get back on his foam roll and mobilize this front so that he doesn't get so much compensation in that hip in rotation. All right, so restoring length, functional length. So the concept of fascia, I have spaghetti up here because that's how I explain it. So we're not stretching muscles. Stretching feels nice, but it really doesn't do much to change the tissue. It doesn't carry over into gait. Like you feel loose for a little bit, maybe, if you're lucky. But stretching is like you've got a knot in a rubber band and you pull the rubber band. Guess what? That knot is still there. So that's why we use the concept of mobilization. Foam rolls. I don't do balls very much anymore. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But here's the spaghetti. So you got a plate of spaghetti, and fascia is head to toe. It's all throughout our bodies. It blends in with tendons and blends in with bones. And anytime we've had those impacts to the body, we've had some inflammation, that fascia gets stuck down like dried spaghetti. So then you go to move, like there's the glue on your wetsuit, you go to move and these areas don't move, but your body's like, I got to figure out pivot, and then we get a compensation. So it's so important for us to restore the sliding and gliding in the movement of the fascia throughout the body from head to toe. And that's what we talk about, mobilizing and just not spot treating. As we looked at the pictures, we talked about how legs can get super tight. Most people are just rolling out their quads and their hamstrings and their IT bands. But again, those are secondary. Those are compensations by the way somebody walks. And actually what we need to do is we need to get that length through the spine. Once we restore efficient gait, restoring the length and the control to have efficient gait, those legs don't get overused as much, and then we don't need to roll them. Nothing drives me more crazy when I go into a gym and I see a foam roll that has a big dent on the side. I'm like, you guys, we got to work the length. Don't just roll your legs and your hamstrings and those shoulder blade areas, because those are driven by these deeper internal things that we're looking to improve the function of. Here is Sally, which we saw her in her functional position. And again, most people would say, you need to stretch that out or roll that out. So she is rolling this. But what's even more important is there's tightness from C-section, scar tissue up here, that she's also self-mobilizing and using the roll to mobilize as well, because she needs to get that leg behind her. When that leg can't get behind her when she's walking, it goes into her low back. Yes, foam roll versus spot treatment. Here is the fascia blasters, which often we use on overused muscles. I actually pulled my quad, so I did use that there. It was kind of helpful. My hands are better than that though. So I self-treated. But often those are used for muscles that are so tight. And I take it a step back further. When we're more efficient in our body through the length and the stability and the control, we don't get that overuse as much. And again, it mobilizes, but it's not addressing why those muscles are getting so tight. So what I'm so passionate about is this vertical length. And most people, yes, I've got a half foam roll. You need the long one. So as we go length, we're tight here. Our low back arches, our neck arches. Low backs and necks are where we get most of our degeneration. So as we look at movement, when we're tight here, too much motion here, too much motion there. So the concept of dura, so I talk a lot about vertical length. The dura is covering a brain and spinal cord. And the column, we need to get that vertical length and elasticity, or else we get pulled down into these curves, just like this gentleman here. So much tightness through here, so much tightness through there. We've got I think we had shoulder pain, elbow pain, neck pain. All of that is driven through here, but it's not enough for me just to treat this. I need to get him out of so much curve here. I need to get him out of so much here. And that's his job, to practice, spend this time to open up, really mobilize and open up the tissue, and then start to get strong in that lengthened position. So we go vertical length first, then we go horizontal length, because again, we need this extension through here. The concept of extension, when we're tight here, we lose motion, and then it gets accumulated here, accumulated there. A beautiful thing is we're on the foam roll, we get chest expansion and oxygenation. I work with a lot of patients post-concussion and with mild cognitive impairment into Alzheimer's. And so airway is a big piece for all of them. So a couple of things we think about with regard to posture, right? How well are those vertebral arteries and those jugular veins working when we've got this much contour at the neck? So we definitely need to get that out of there. And then with regard to chest, again, many of us are so tight here. When we go to breathe, we just don't have good expansion into the chest. So as we're opening up on foam roll, we bring the breath into it because we want ease. We always want ease of movement through our body. So we're looking, how can we create ease instead of tension, pulling, tug of war? We go into rotationals through the spine because we need rotations as we walk. Again, any area that doesn't move well, your body's going to find another area to get it, and then the burden is accumulated. And absolutely the front of legs, because that's all compensatory from the way we walk inefficiently. These are my boys, not mine, but they're my boys' teammates. I treated them all summer long, and they came in with knee pain and shoulder pain. And the first place we go, hey, you guys, you got to mobilize, because they're so tight here. So here they're throwing on a shoulder that's pulled forward. So I was so proud of them. Every time they come to the games, I throw the foam rolls out there and they would start rolling, because again, the more pliable their body is, hold tight. Where'd we go, friends? Paused. Friends, where'd it go? I got kicked out. Oh no. Oh no. Friends.
I can still hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay, good. I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Like glitched for a second, but I can still hear you. Yeah.
All right, I'm here. Hold tight. I'm not super smart when it comes to Zoom. Good Lord, help me. Okay, so here is resume. All right, piece of cake, easy peasy. You got me? We good? Good. Okay, thank you. All right, so they did a great job with mobilizing.
Well, wait, now I can't see the picture.
You don't have my screen. Okay, I'm screen sharing. Let's go back to here.
It's just white.
All right, now you got it?
Okay, there it is.
Awesome, thank you. Fantastic. I do see something on the chat. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Thank you. Appreciate you. Love you all. All right, so we are back to the screen share. I need to clear this so I can see here. All right, so again, back to stretching and strengthening and exercising. A lot of exercises that people are given, they already feed into patterns that are too strong. Like most of us, we don't need crunches. A lot of people overwork the hip flexors. I see stuff come through on Facebook and, hey, get your hip flexors strong. We don't need that. They're way too strong. Let me move this all the way. Sorry, guys. And back to a lot of those exercises are gripping the outer strength. So again, I see hamstrings working way too much. You know, all of my athletes, my high school, college athletes, those hamstrings are working way too much. And they don't have that solid stability where all the muscles are working together. Go back to my first picture of the boat. Everybody in the boat needs to be working at the right place at the right time. They need to work together versus just one person in the boat working. That's what happens a lot. Or a hip flexor is just working by itself, or a hamstring is just working by itself. And that's not efficient. It's going to get into trouble. We get compensations. So the core is like a light switch. It turns on, it turns off. I'm going to play this video here. This is how I will retrain sometimes in the clinic. Getting into the pelvis, right? There's the foot. We're using the foot to drive into the pelvis. We get into the pelvis a lot. And as we access the foot and the anchor of the pelvis, we're getting into the true deep core. So it's a matter of learning how to turn on, which I'm going to teach you how to do this at home. So back to that concept of automatic core. Because even this morning, my patient's like, well, shouldn't I be gripping and holding on? Shouldn't I be contracting my core? I'm like, you shouldn't. So we think about babies. Babies come out of the womb and they just start crawling. They don't walk around holding their core, because when we hold and grip, it's not ease of motion. It's not, we glitched again, my friends. Do you still have me?
You're there, but now we see your whole entire desktop.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yes. It's very pretty and purple.
And it's got a lot of stuff all over it because it's all the stuff in my head. I'm going to stop it and restart it. Hi.
Okay.
You're all really cute. Let's go back to my desktop here. I want to share my desktop, but I need to get into my screen here. All right, back in. All right, so back to our foundational strength in a lengthened position. So yeah, so much, fire your core, do a Kegel. None of that is automatic. So your core should fire automatically. That is our goal, because when we hold and we brace, we lose motion, and that's not our true stability. Guys, this is killing me. All right, still have me? All right, so here we go. Yep. True core, we're almost there. Fantastic. So here's where we pull things together. So we start, this is, again, it's my favorite work. And no matter if you are 16 years old or you're 66 years old, we all need this work. So we need the length, which we talked about in the foam roll. So all of this comes together, right? We mobilize and then we stabilize, and we mobilize and stabilize. And that combination gets our bodies more efficient. So we start with base of support down here at the feet, toes up, balls down. And as soon as we start to engage the feet, that core, she's going into a bridge, which we don't do until like week 3 or week 4. We stay down because we hold. So I teach you how to engage the ball of your big toe, and we hold it there. Don't let me move you. So these prolonged holds, your muscles are like, oh, you want me to respond. Oh, you want me to stabilize. So it takes time for that deeper core response to start to come in. The longer we hold there, we also facilitate it by pulling down. So we're facilitating the core from below, the core from above. The fibers start to work their way up, and hope for it. The stronger you are, the longer it takes. It might take you 2 minutes. But the longer we hold, we start getting into, and you'll feel your pelvic floor, bing, kick in. And that's what we want. We want an automatic response to load. We want you to feel that, and you can feel it, and I'll help you feel that. I can see it through the screen. If you have trouble with it when you're doing it at home, I can troubleshoot it through the screen, and I can see it like with my patients. I can tell, like, yes, you're in your core or you're not there yet. So when you're not in your core, you're going to feel your arms, you might feel your legs, but once you're deep in there, you feel that connect. You're like, wow, I feel that kicking in. So as we troubleshoot, sometimes we got to let the legs go. The legs are gripping too hard. So it's very slow. So it's not sexy like lifting big weights, right? You'll see me in the gym and I'm working really hard with my pinky finger because I'm working deep, facilitating deep inside stuff. It's slow, big, long holds. But once it kicks in, it is so powerful. So we start at the feet, we pull from top down, we start to engage the neck. So, but we do this step by step because these are new things. We're retraining your body as to how to fire. It's been turned, remember, it's been turned off for a while. So we have to reteach it. Hey, here's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. So this is where we start, and this is where we cue. And then as we start to get, things start to kick in more automatically and more quick. And that's why we practice. And then we start to bring in weights. Can we challenge the system even harder? Can that core stay solid when you take your arm out to the side, or, oh, you lose it in 2 inches, right? Think about playing tennis or, anything rotational. You're watering your garden, right? You go to move, that core needs to support your back as you move. So we want functional length and strength. We want them to work together. We want all of this work. So it becomes an exercise program that you're going to do to stay on top of things. But these principles, you're going to carry them over into everything you do. So shoveling, here I am engaging my base of support. If I'm not engaging, kind of subtly engaging my feet, I'm going to hurt my back. And most people do. So as I start to engage my foot, I've got strength and stability off which to work from. I also have my shoulder blades in a good position so that I've got adequate strength and stability to lift so I don't strain or hurt something. So this is this internal foundational strength. This is my boy. So we've worked a lot on, he's got some elbow pain, shoulder issues, right? He's a pitcher and he throws. So back to number one, we've got to make sure he's got functional length through his spine. He's doing rotationals. He's doing his length. He's got tug of war. He gets into trouble with his low back. And again, he sits all day long, right? So we've got the functional length that he needs. But what's been really important for him is to get the functional strength. And I'll see him when he pitches, and I'll say, buddy, you're not in your legs. So I see this often where people, again, this is 25 years of me working and practicing, but I can tell when chords aren't firing well. Like you can just see they're not quite as solid. So as I've taught him how, hey, here's my finger under your foot. And I've done this while he's been on the mound. Don't let me lift you, Logan. I want you to feel that engage through your body, feel that come into your pelvis. So once he turns that on, engages that, he's got much more power, stability, and strength off which to work, of which he wants that for power. But then he's also protecting his shoulder because he's staying in a more efficient position. I'm going to skip past Maeve. And I want to go into, so why I made this a course. So I really made it a course because as I'm working with my patients, I'm teaching parts and pieces. And then we're treating other things like some, intestinal things that are stuck. There's some things that I just have to do with my hands with my patients. But so I would teach them foam roll and then I would send them off. And then every once in a while I'd come back in and they weren't quite doing it as effective as I wanted them to. Again, time is precious. My time is precious. I want you to get down there. I want you to be as effective as possible versus I'm just doing this and I didn't get much out of it, or I didn't feel a lot of change. So I realized I had to do a lot more cueing and teaching in the clinic to really execute it, because it takes time to learn something new and to really master it and own it. And the same thing goes with the core. Like I would teach core once or twice and they're like, oh, I did it a couple of times. But what would happen is they would fizzle off. They wouldn't do the work as much. And then, hey, my back is hurting again. Sorry, guys, let me get back in here. So back to, hey, are you working your foam roll? Are you working your feet? Oh, I forgot about that. So that's why I really feel we need to master this, own this, practice this so that you integrate it, you live it, it becomes automatic for you. And then you spend less time in my clinic, your back feels lots better, you stay out of trouble, you're stronger. So also I was working out at the time at a gym and I watch everybody, I can't help it, but I'm watching these women work out and I'm just waiting for, I see their shoulder position and they're doing weights and they're trying to do strong weights. And I'm watching the shoulders. I'm like, there's just a matter of time before those rotator cuffs start to shred because they're not in a good position. And now they're doing repetition and weights on an inefficient position, nor are their cores working. So I'm watching them pick stuff off the ground. I'm like, man, there's that knee's going to go. And I don't say anything to them because that's not the time or place. But back to, it wouldn't take much to teach all of you, get on that foam roll, mobilize, start to stabilize, start to engage that foot. Anytime they're lifting weight, engage that foot. So then you're reinforcing the core. So every exercise that you do in the gym can feed into your core. So how bonus to work your core without even working your core. So anytime you engage that base of support, maybe you're going into a lunge or squat, your core is automatically firing, and then you're working strength on top of a stable core. This is Amy again. We looked at her bunions. She also had some neck shoulder pain. So we worked the length. We had to work the vertical length through here. And then that shoulder position is so very important to be in this right position, or if not, she's going to get into trouble. So part of the course that I teach, we go onto the wall, we start to learn where to put the shoulder blades on the back. We learn how to get strong in this lengthened position. So here's the course. Actually, this is the second time I've run it online. It's the first time on this platform. I've run it in person 2 times before. So I've been really excited how the concept of practice, we practice it over time. You learn it, you own it, you master it. And that really is the best way to teach this and for you to have this. So it is online in the comfort of your own home. So I've already had them recorded. I'll probably record some new ones, but I teach you step-by-step lesson. And I only give you one piece at a time because I want you to master each piece. And then we'll integrate each piece into the whole. Pre-testing, post-testing, I'll take you through that. So you've got, here's my baseline, and don't feel bad about if you're tight or whatnot, because over time, you're gonna look to see where, sorry guys, you're gonna look to see the changes that you made over time, and I'll show you in the comments later, the changes that people had made. So each each week builds upon the last week, right? So we start with lengthening. We can't get strength until we have length. So each week we'll always start with the length, and then we'll add on the next piece. We'll add on the next piece. We'll add on the next piece. And at the very end of the 8 weeks, you're going to have this workout. It'll take you maybe 15 minutes to do your mobility work, engage your feet, get your core to turn on, get a little strong in that position, and then you've reset your system into functional length, functional strength, and then you go about your way. It's when we don't stay on top of that is when we start to get tight again, the core becomes inhibited. So for even my athletes, I'm like, yes, you've got stuff in the gym, but I need you to do this 2 to 3 times a week to keep your internal stability and strength together. So you'll have this little workout that you'll keep with you forever. But then also, as I said, you're going to engage these principles in everything that you do, whether you're lifting a baby up from the floor, you're unloading groceries, you're going to be more solid, more engaged, more structurally, functionally efficient and healthy. Cueing, it's all about the cueing. So I'm taking you through. Sometimes it's like a meditation, like let this go, bring that in. So it's not fast doing stuff. It's a lot of awareness, learning about your body, learning how to feel these subtle engagements and letting go. So here's what my people are saying, which was really exciting. They made such great gains, and I'll just let you read through those. Excited about the bigger breaths. Again, we're unburdening the system. So we've taken tension off areas that have been tight. We've unburdened areas that have been subject to too much motion. So we've really balanced out the structure and the stability so that your body just moves through space easier, with more strength, with more ease, and that is our goal. We start to get some length as we get the vertical length. And this is the most important thing, is using this stuff in your daily life. That's what's going to keep you out of trouble. It's going to hopefully prevent the degeneration process. If it started, a lot of this has already started. So hopefully it slows that down or prevents it back to, surgeries down the road, knee replacements, whatnot. The more we can avoid that, the better. And then also we get to do the work that we want to do. We want to go play with our kids and do activities and exercise and take good care of ourselves without getting into injuries and trouble. I'm so sorry about that. So here we are. So it is the power of core, which it's so much more than just core. It is this program of functional length and functional strength, and we pull it all together to restore your system. So I truly believe we can, no matter where you're at, we can restore your system. You can restore your system and help it move more efficiently to move through life with greater ease and greater strength. So this course is going to launch on October 21st is when we start. Registration is going to close this Sunday. So we will work 8 weeks. Each week you will get we've got this awesome online platform. It's got week by week. So each week, your instructions and your lessons on video, they will be there. So you just take your time and work through that, and I'll tell you how much you need to practice. As far as time commitment, the videos, I'd say probably a good 30 minutes, maybe 45. I try to keep them fairly short. And then you need time to practice. So you need at least a good 15 to 30 minutes to practice a day. But again, you're going to be starting to think about that throughout your day. So you're sneaking in practice all the time, but you do need to make sure you carve out time to do those lessons and have those lessons done before the Q&A so that you're ready for questions, so I can help you problem solve and fine tune. And then you're ready for the next week, because I want you to master this first week until you get into the next week, master that week, and then we get into the next. There are materials. We need long foam rolls, bands, and weights. So I will tell you as soon as you register, I'll tell you, hey, here's exactly what you need. Here's where you can order from them if you like. And then this class will run again, maybe in later spring. So it'll be a while. So this is your chance right now to get in there and start to mobilize and stabilize. If you've been wanting to go work out, this is a great foundational piece to just get your body ready to go work out, especially as we get into the holidays and we want to take care of ourselves, and making the time to do that. Because what we do now in our 30s, 40s, 50s, even 60s, we will thank ourselves for the work that we did today for where our bodies go. Because you've seen pictures. Here's where things go when we don't take care of our bodies. And the more we do now, the less likelihood we have of trouble down the road. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for letting me share stories with you. And I appreciate any questions that you have. Actually, this is a great time. If you have any questions, you may fire them off. I'm going to unshare my screen. Oh, down here is a QR code. So you can scan that QR code that will take you right to registration. On that page that I think you've all been to, there's lots more information about the course and everything that we're going to cover. But please email me with questions, text me if you have questions. I'd love to see you on board. I just get so excited to teach, so excited to train, and I get excited to see how people make changes, not just in the time we have together, but down the road, how they continue to incorporate all this work into their lives. I'm going to stop my share here and bring myself back to you. And fantastic. Any questions that any of you have? All right, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you all in the course, and hit me with any questions that you have. And if this isn't the right time, that is a-okay. Know that the course will launch again in the spring, so we'll let you know when that comes around again. But I hope that you've gained just some insight, ideas, start to explore your own body a little bit more. Some of that pre-testing that we did, just noted, hey, are there some areas that I need to work on to get yourself ready to jump into course and get your body structure healthy. All right, have a great weekend, and I hope to see you in the course.
Thank you, Jen.
Yep, you're welcome. Bye.